Dear Chosen One, we often hear the phrase Chosen One thrown around in stories, movies and myths, as if it belongs only in fantasy. But what if I told you that it's not fiction, that it's not a title reserved for the few who are born with golden destinies or supernatural gifts, but rather for those who are forged through fire? What if the chosen ones are not handed an easy path, but are instead led through the deepest valleys, the longest nights, the most excruciating inner trials, until they become unbreakable? Because that's the truth. The chosen ones aren't born, they are made. And the making, it comes through a series of tests that most people never even recognize, let alone pass. These aren't tests you can study for. They don't come with instructions or obvious lessons. They come quietly, disguised as heartbreak, as rejection, as loss, as silence, as seasons where it feels like even God has gone quiet. They are not physical battles you fight with fists. They are internal battles that shake your soul, and most people turn back before they even know what's happening. But not you, because if you're here now, it's not by accident. It's because your spirit already knows. You're in the middle of something sacred. You are on the chosen path. Before we begin, let me pause and say thank you, truly, to those of you who have supported this message, who have donated through Super Thanks. Your generosity is not just appreciated, it's powerful. It fuels this movement, this mission, this spiritual awakening we are building together. Your support helps me bring these messages to more souls who need them. And if you haven't given but you've stayed, watched, commented or simply received, please know I am deeply grateful for you too. Whether you give or not, you are part of this family. You are seen, loved and honored. This is not for the masses. This is for the initiated, for the ones who have been marked by struggle and chosen by the Spirit, for the ones who didn't choose this path for glory, but followed it because their soul had no other choice. This is for the ones who have been misunderstood, misjudged, and underestimated, because the world couldn't see the magnitude of what they were carrying. And now, if you're ready to claim your place in this process, if you feel the truth of this message resonating in your soul, then drop a 777 in the comments right now. That number isn't just symbolic. It represents divine alignment, spiritual confirmation, and the unfolding of purpose. When you type it, you're not just engaging with content, you're making a declaration to heaven that you're ready for the tests, the truth, and the transformation. Let this be your signal that you know you're one of the chosen, that you're ready to awaken, that you're not turning back. Now stay with me until the very end, because the 7 hardest tests that only the chosen can endure are not random. They're sequential, they're intentional, and if you pass through them, nothing about your life will stay the same. Let's begin. God's chosen ones, the 7 hardest spiritual tests only you can endure. Test 1. The mirror of identity. Who are you without the mask? Chosen one, the very first test you must endure is not external. It is the piercing, soul-deep challenge of facing the truth of who you truly are. It's easy to believe we know ourselves when our lives are filled with labels, titles, and roles. The job you work, the people you love, the possessions you collect, these things become costumes we wear, layers we wrap ourselves in to feel safe, validated, or seen. But what happens when God asks you to take off the mask? What happens when He strips away everything you've used to define yourself? This is not a gentle unveiling. It is a spiritual confrontation. When this moment comes, and it will come for every chosen one, it feels like standing naked in front of your soul. Can you imagine it? No job title to hide behind, no relationship status to validate you, no material wealth to distract from the silence, just you and the reflection staring back. Will you recognize yourself, or will you want to turn away? Examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves. Do you not realize that Christ Jesus is in you? 2 Corinthians 13:5. Many people, when faced with this test, recoil. They run back into their old identities, back into the comfort of illusions and applause. It's safer there, where no one asks them to look too deeply. But you're different. You were chosen for a reason. You were born with the courage to confront what others flee from. When God removes everything that was never truly you, will you have the faith to stand still and ask, then who am I really? This was the exact question that shattered the world of Jim Carrey, one of the most successful actors of our time. At the height of his fame, he admitted that reaching all his goals didn't bring him peace, because the version of himself he'd built wasn't his true self. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see that it's not the answer, he said. That was his first test, the mirror of identity. And he chose to seek deeper truth beyond the mask of celebrity. Could it be that your life is shifting right now, not because something's going wrong, but because God is calling you into this exact moment? Have you noticed how people no longer recognize you? How the things that once made you feel confident no longer satisfy you? That's not confusion, it's refinement. For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the good things He planned for us long ago. Ephesians 2:10. Chosen one, don't mistake this test for punishment. It's a sacred invitation. This test is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to uncover you. And God will keep bringing you back to this moment again and again until you are no longer afraid to meet your own gaze. Until you stop asking, who am I supposed to be? And start declaring, I now remember who I've always been. You're not alone in this. Oprah Winfrey went through this test too. Early in her career, she was told to hide her emotions, flatten her personality, and stay within the lines. But the moment she embraced her true self and stopped pretending, everything changed. Her career exploded not because she became someone new, but because she finally showed up as who she really was. So let me ask you now, what version of you needs to die so the real you can be born? What role are you still clinging to that God already asked you to release? But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. One of the most difficult examples of this test in history was experienced by Nelson Mandela. Stripped of his status, title, and even his freedom for 27 years, Mandela had nothing left but the truth of who he was. In that silence, he didn't crumble. He became unshakable. Because once you know who you are without anything, you become someone the world cannot unmake. Let me remind you of something powerful. God never anoints a mask. He can only bless the real you. And if you're feeling like your world is unraveling, it may be because heaven is revealing the true version of you that this world so desperately needs. That unraveling? It's divine. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13. Even Adele, the globally famous singer, recently spoke about this journey. After enormous success, she stepped away from the spotlight, saying she needed to rediscover her true identity apart from her career. It wasn't burnout, it was spiritual transformation. She re-emerged with a message not just of music, but of truth and vulnerability. That's the power of the first test. So now, when you remove the noise, the titles, the expectations, who remains? Do you recognize that soul in the mirror, or are you still waiting to meet them? This is the first and hardest spiritual test. But if you're still here, still searching, still listening, that means you've already passed the hardest part. You didn't turn away. Test 2. the sacred silence. Can you withstand isolation? Chosen one, the second spiritual test that only the called can endure is the test of isolation, and it's one that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. In a world obsessed with connection, with endless scrolling, talking, performing, and entertaining, silence has become almost unbearable. But that's exactly where God leads his chosen ones, to the wilderness of quiet, to the sacred space where no voices exist but his and yours. This isn't just about being physically alone, it's deeper than that. You are being called to sit with yourself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. No distractions, no filters, no one to validate your worth or fill the silence with noise. Just you, your thoughts, your soul, and the still voice of God that has been waiting beneath all the chaos. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Can you stand to hear your own thoughts when there's no one left to echo them? Can you sit in a room and not reach for your phone, not open your inbox, not distract yourself from what your soul is trying to say? Because in that stillness, something holy begins to happen. You start to hear a voice you may have forgotten long ago. Not the world's voice, not the crowd's opinion, your true inner voice. The one God placed inside you before the world told you who you were supposed to be. Even Michael Jackson, the king of pop, once confessed that isolation, though painful, was necessary for him to create. He often locked himself away from public noise just to reconnect with what was real inside. He once said, "The most powerful creation in your life will come from your loneliness." That wasn't just art he was talking about, it was soul work, and he was right. But let's be honest, chosen one, have you ever felt God was stripping people away from your life for no reason? Friends start to fade. Social events feel draining. Conversations feel shallow. It's not rejection, it's redirection. Isolation is how God reintroduces you to yourself. Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Luke 5:16. Even Jesus, the Son of God, chose isolation before every major move in his life. Before his ministry, he went into the wilderness. Before his crucifixion, he went to the garden alone. He wasn't escaping people. He was preparing in silence. If the Savior himself needed solitude, how much more do you, chosen one? You may feel like you're being forgotten or hidden in this season, but let me challenge that. What if this isn't a punishment, but a preparation? What if this silence isn't empty? It's sacred. Emma Watson, known globally for her role as Hermione in Harry Potter, stepped away from the spotlight at the height of her career. Why? To get quiet, to study, to travel alone, and to hear herself outside of fame's roar. She once said, "I felt like I needed to figure out who I was when I wasn't being constantly watched." That's the spirit of this test. Identity rediscovered in divine isolation. The world fears silence because it exposes truth, but the chosen, we lean into it because we understand something deeper. God speaks the loudest when the world is the quietest. Therefore, I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. Hosea 2:14. Think about that. God actually lures you into loneliness to speak tenderly to you, not harshly, not angrily, tenderly. He wants intimacy, not distance. So that moment when you felt most abandoned, that was heaven drawing near. Steve Jobs, another example, was known for his obsessive need to disconnect and walk alone before making any major decision. He believed that clarity came only through uninterrupted solitude. The same is true spiritually. You can't hear God's strategy for your life while drowning in the world's noise. So let me ask you now, when was the last time you got truly quiet? No phone, no music, no input, just stillness. What truth have you been avoiding by staying busy? The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. The fight you're in right now might not even require your effort. It may require your stillness, your trust, your willingness to sit in the silence and listen long enough to hear God's whisper. Even Taylor Swift, after years of non-stop touring and media chaos, vanished from the spotlight. She returned not just with new music, but with a sharper sense of purpose, stronger boundaries, and a clearer voice. Her isolation wasn't a breakdown, it was a rebirth. Chosen one, if you're in a season where it feels like everyone has left, maybe it's because God needed your full attention. The world is loud, but heaven is patient. And in that quiet space, you'll hear something you've been chasing for years. Confirmation from within. This test isn't about punishment, it's about power through presence. It's about learning that you are never truly alone. You are simply being drawn away so that God can draw you in. Test 3. The weight you must release. The test of letting go. Chosen one, the third spiritual test is one of the most subtle, yet most excruciating. It is the test of letting go. It's not loud like a storm or violent like betrayal. It's quiet, invisible, internal. And that's what makes it so hard, because no one can do it for you. You must walk through this test alone, with trembling hands and a surrendered heart. We hold on to so much, don't we? Memories that hurt, words that wounded, expectations that were never met. You may be carrying things right now that God never asked you to carry: relationships, outcomes, regrets, timelines. But to pass this test, you must be willing to release it all. Not because you don't care, but because clinging is not the same as trusting. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving it to God. Cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. Psalm 55:22. Do you realize how much energy you've spent holding on to things that no longer serve you? Holding on to grudges, trying to force outcomes, replaying disappointments like a loop in your mind? That's not freedom. That's bondage dressed as responsibility. The chosen ones know the truth. Freedom begins where control ends. Even Keanu Reeves, known for his stoic grace and strength, experienced deep loss with the death of his partner and their unborn child. Instead of letting bitterness consume him, he chose peace. In interviews, he often speaks about the importance of detaching from what you cannot change. His wisdom in grief shows us something powerful. Letting go isn't forgetting, it's allowing life to flow again. But here's the truth that will challenge you deeply. Letting go isn't a one-time act. It's a continual process. It's the daily choice to trust the unseen plan of God over the visible chaos of circumstances. Just when you think you've mastered it, life sends something precious into your hands and asks, "Can you trust me with this too?" Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Isaiah 43:18-19. Chosen one, how can God give you new wine if you're still clinging to old wineskins? How can He bring new people into your life when your hands are clenched around those He already released? The truth is, we often delay our blessings because we refuse to let go of what's expired. Take Chadwick Boseman, for example. Before he became the global icon in Black Panther, he walked away from roles and opportunities that didn't align with his deeper purpose. Letting go of fame-driven projects wasn't easy, but he trusted a greater mission, and in doing so, he fulfilled a legacy that changed millions of lives. His choice to let go opened a door no man could have forced open. So I ask you now, what are you still holding on to that God has already released you from? Is it a broken friendship, a failed expectation, a timeline that didn't unfold the way you hoped? Could it be that your next breakthrough is waiting on the other side of your surrender? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. Proverbs 3:5-6. One of the hardest moments of letting go came for Princess Diana. The entire world watched as she stepped away from the royal institution, not just from a title, but from a life she had given everything to. And yet in doing so, she found her voice, her mission, and her healing. That decision cost her a kingdom, but it gave her her soul back. That's what letting go does. It returns you to yourself. Sometimes God asks you to let go, not to take something from you, but to make room for what's truly yours. And that's where the test lies. It's not about releasing something bad. Often, it's releasing something good, so that something divine can enter. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. What burdens have you convinced yourself you must carry forever? Who told you that you have to hold the past in one hand and your future in the other? Beloved, you cannot receive with clenched fists. Open your hands, open your heart, let go. Even Beyoncé, at the height of her career, let go of managing her own group, her father's leadership, and familiar structures in order to grow into the woman and artist she is now. It was painful, but it was necessary, because every chosen one eventually faces the choice: cling to comfort or rise into calling. So, chosen one, how much are you willing to release in order to be free? Can you trust that what is truly yours cannot be lost? Can you surrender not just the pain, but even your desire to control how healing should look? Letting go may be the hardest test, but it is the one that will set you free. Test 4. The dark night of the soul, when God feels silent and the world falls apart. Chosen one, if you've made it through the first 3 tests, identity, isolation, and letting go, you are already undergoing transformation. You've peeled back the surface. You've begun to uncover who you really are beneath the noise, the roles, and the masks. But I must tell you something honestly. This journey doesn't get easier from here. It gets deeper, it gets darker, and it demands more from your soul than you thought possible. The 4th test is not for the faint of heart. It's a test that has shaken the foundations of even the most faithful. It's called the dark night of the soul, a season where everything familiar vanishes, and all that once brought comfort begins to dissolve. You feel like your prayers are echoing back at you, unanswered. The faces that once surrounded you are gone. The job you thought was secure disappears. Your motivation, your direction, your very sense of identity becomes blurry and unstable. And in this terrifying silence, one question rings louder than all the rest. Where is God in all of this? Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23:4. Chosen one, this is not a coincidence. This is not divine neglect. This is a sacred fire, a furnace meant to purify you, not punish you. You are not being abandoned. You are being refined. Have you ever asked yourself, what happens when the life I built starts to fall apart? Not because I failed, but because I'm being called higher. This is the paradox of the chosen. God removes what once held you so that he can reveal what truly holds you together. The dark night of the soul is not just a season of pain. It is a spiritual initiation, a complete dismantling of everything false, surface level, and unsustainable within you. You start to realize that what you thought was your foundation, status, routines, relationships, was never solid at all. And only then can you start to build again, this time on truth. Martin Luther King Jr., even as a man of great faith and leadership, admitted to deep bouts of depression and doubt. In a moment of crushing despair, when he feared for his life and his family, he cried out to God with tears and trembling. And in that moment of breakdown, he heard one of the clearest confirmations in his life. Stand up for righteousness, stand up for truth, and God will be at your side forever. That was his dark night. and it forged the man who would later change the world. But let me ask you this: how do you respond when everything you counted on starts to slip through your fingers? Do you cling to what's crumbling, or do you surrender, trusting that what falls away is no longer aligned with the version of you God is awakening? We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed but not in despair, persecuted but not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. Some people, when faced with this level of spiritual chaos, shut down. They numb the pain, they give up, they try to rebuild the ruins with the same bricks that led them here. But the chosen ones, we respond differently. We learn to sit in the dark without lighting a false flame. We learn to wait, not because we enjoy suffering, but because we trust that this darkness has purpose. During his early career, Robert Downey Jr. faced personal destruction, addiction, legal battles, and prison. He had everything and lost it all. But that night of the soul broke open a new path. Through surrender, healing, and grace, he re-emerged, not just as a Hollywood star, but as a man who had truly met himself in the fire. That level of transformation doesn't happen without the darkness. And here's what you need to remember: God hides in the silence, not to confuse you, but to reveal you. When he removes your usual coping mechanisms, your distractions, and even your ability to feel his presence, it's because he's growing something deeper, unshakable faith. I will give you the treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name. Isaiah 45:3. Treasures of darkness. What a phrase! Could it be that the very things you are cursing right now, the silence, the isolation, the confusion, are actually holding the treasures your soul has been seeking? Could it be that the breakdown you're living through is also your breakthrough in disguise? Simone Biles, one of the most decorated gymnasts in history, made headlines when she withdrew from Olympic competition, not due to physical injury, but to protect her mental and emotional health. Many questioned her. Some criticized her. But she chose something rare: inner truth over outer applause. That moment, painful and misunderstood, was her night of the soul. And from it, she emerged more human, more respected, and more powerful than ever before. Chosen one, understand this deeply. You are not losing your light. It is being concentrated. In the dark, it seems dim, but in reality, it's being pressed, condensed, and forged like a diamond under pressure. You're not being destroyed, you're being redefined. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Job 13:15. Think of Job, the biblical icon of endurance. He lost his family, his wealth, his health. Everything was stripped from him, yet in the midst of his agony, he never lost his reverence for God. And what did he receive in return? Not just restoration, but double what was taken. His dark night became the testimony of God's restoration power. So, chosen one, are you willing to let your false strength break so that divine strength can rise in its place? Can you walk through this night knowing that dawn is coming, even when every voice in your head tells you otherwise? Can you believe that silence is not abandonment, but intimacy in disguise? This phase is not the end, it's the middle, and the middle is messy, but it's also sacred. God is not punishing you. He's allowing the darkness to empty you so that he can fill you with something greater. Let go of the need to have all the answers. Let go of the belief that you failed because you can't feel joy right now. This test is not about feelings, it's about faith. So I encourage you, even if you're walking through what feels like the longest, darkest night of your life, keep going. Don't stop. Don't build a home in despair. Don't mistake the silence for rejection. This is your spiritual winter, and though everything looks barren now, seeds are germinating beneath the soil. The light will return, the purpose will become clear. The strength you're building now will serve you for years to come. Just because you can't see the path doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're being led by faith, not sight. Chosen one, this is your refining. This is your becoming. And when the light returns, you'll shine with a brilliance the darkness could never steal. Test 5. The test of faith, trusting the unseen in total darkness. Chosen one, if you've made it this far, through identity loss, isolation, surrender, and the dark night, then you are no longer just surviving, you are being forged. But now comes the 5th test, the one that brings everything to a spiritual standstill, the test of faith. Not faith in a doctrine, not in a church building, not even in what you can see, touch, or control. This is faith at its rawest, its deepest. Faith in the unseen, in the divine intelligence behind your journey, in the purpose of your pain, and most importantly, in yourself as God's chosen vessel. When you're trapped in the thick shadows of the dark night of the soul, with no evidence of light around you, you're asked to believe in something you can't yet see, to trust that the pit you're in is not your grave, but your womb, that something is being birthed from this pain, something sacred. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Let that settle in. Faith is not a feeling. It's not the absence of fear. It is the decision to keep believing even when nothing makes sense. Faith is when you're crying and confused, but still whisper, "I trust you." It is when your body is exhausted, but your soul says, "One more step." Let me ask you this. What do you do when nothing is left to hold on to, except the belief that this moment isn't the end? Can you trust God's silence? Can you trust your intuition, your calling, your gut, even when it's all being challenged? Stephen Hawking, the brilliant physicist who lost nearly all motor function, continued his life's work through sheer determination and vision. Though not a religious man, he held an unwavering trust in the logic of the universe. Even while confined physically, he expanded human understanding of black holes and time. He believed in the unseen laws guiding all things, even when his own body was breaking down. That's a form of faith. He trusted in meaning beyond the moment. And that's what you're being asked to do now, chosen one. For we live by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Don't misinterpret this moment. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. There's a reason you've lost control, because true faith can only be born when control dies. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've cried, and still the answers may not have come. But the real question is, will you continue walking even when heaven feels quiet? Chosen ones are not exempt from this trial. In fact, it's because you are chosen that you're tested this way. You were called to believe in the invisible realm, to align with a purpose that unfolds one impossible step at a time. J.K. Rowling, before becoming the first billionaire author, was a single mother, unemployed and deeply depressed. She said she had nothing to lose, and began to write what would become Harry Potter on cafe napkins. The world around her told her to quit, but she believed in something not yet real. She held on to an invisible dream when there was no applause, no publishing deal, no confirmation, just conviction. That's the essence of the test you're in now. Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her. Luke 1:45. Faith isn't passive. It's a spiritual muscle. It must be stretched, broken, tested, and then it grows stronger. This test will tempt you to give up. You'll hear voices, internal and external, that say it's too late, you're delusional, or this is never going to work. But you must anchor yourself in the unseen. You must declare, even if I can't see it, I know it's there. Chosen one, do you remember what God whispered to you in the light? Then don't doubt it just because you're walking through the dark. The path may be hidden, but the purpose is not lost. Nick Vujicic, born without arms and legs, could have allowed despair to define his life. Instead, he leaned into radical faith. He became one of the world's most sought-after motivational speakers, spreading messages of hope, resilience, and spiritual trust. He says often, if God can use a man without limbs to be his hands and feet, then God can use anybody. Nick's journey is living proof. Faith transforms limitations into platforms. Though you have not seen him, you love him, and even though you do not see him now, you believe in him. 1 Peter 1:8. But faith also asks for your participation. You're not just supposed to believe and do nothing. Faith is waking up and saying, I'm going to build, even if I don't see the full blueprint. It's showing up with excellence in a season of emptiness. It's holding on when the world tells you to let go. Denzel Washington, one of Hollywood's most respected actors, has often shared that his life was transformed by his faith in God. In multiple interviews, he described how he turned down roles that didn't align with his spirit, even before he had the luxury to do so. Faith is the confidence in things hoped for, he once said. You have to trust that what's for you is already yours. That bold faith opened doors no man could close. So now I ask you, can you trust the promise even when you have no proof? Can you believe that your suffering is not wasted, that it is working something eternal in you, something this world cannot measure? This test will not be easy. You'll have days when you're holding on by a thread, but that thread, if it's faith, it's stronger than steel. You may not know how it ends. You may not know where the path leads. But your assignment is not to know the outcome. Your assignment is to keep showing up, keep believing, and keep walking by faith. He replied, because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, nothing will be impossible for you. Matthew 17:20. Even mustard seed faith can move mountains. It's not about how much faith you have, it's about where you place it. Faith doesn't mean ignoring the pain. It means acknowledging it without bowing to it. It's looking at the chaos and saying, yes, I see the storm, but I trust the one who commands it. So, chosen one, when everything feels like it's crumbling, can you hold your ground in the unseen? Can you trust that this isn't the end, but the deep beginning of something divine? Can you still believe, even when your senses scream doubt? This is not blind hope. This is not wishful thinking. This is holy knowing that God didn't bring you this far to abandon you now. The very fact that you are still standing, still seeking, still hungry for truth, that is evidence that you were born to pass this test. Hold the line. Keep the faith. You're not lost. You're becoming unshakable. Test 6, the test of surrender, letting go, so you can finally be carried. Chosen one, if you're standing at this point of the journey, you've already endured what most could not. You've faced the loss of identity, sat in sacred isolation, released attachments, walked through soul-wrenching darkness, and held onto your faith when everything around you begged you to let go. But now you face a test that appears paradoxical, the test of surrender. This test is different from the rest. It's not about how strong you are or how much you can carry. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about what you can lay down. This is the test that asks, can you release control? Can you trust something greater than yourself? Can you stop rowing upstream and let life, God, and divine timing carry you where you're meant to go? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. The truth is, we are addicted to control. From the moment we wake up, we seek to manage, plan, and execute every part of our day, our relationships, our dreams. We use calendars to measure productivity, deadlines to dictate success, and expectations to build our sense of self-worth. But what happens when life refuses to follow your script? What happens when the job falls through, the relationship shifts, or the timeline breaks? Do you tense up, fight harder, cling tighter, or can you surrender? Bruce Lee, a master of martial arts and philosophy, once said, "Be like water." He understood something most never learn. Power lies in flow, not resistance. Water doesn't force its way forward. It adapts, bends, and ultimately shapes mountains. His ability to surrender to life's rhythms, not just in combat but in philosophy, made him immortal in the eyes of many. The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 16:9. Surrender is not about giving up on effort. It's about releasing the illusion that effort alone is what controls outcomes. It's about recognizing that there is a divine hand moving behind the curtain, orchestrating things in ways your human logic could never predict. And the chosen ones, we don't resist that hand. We align with it. So let me ask you, how much of your stress, your anxiety, your fatigue is actually rooted in your need to control? How many times have you exhausted yourself swimming upstream, trying to force something that was never meant for you? Imagine you're in a river. The current is God's will, your soul's true direction. When you surrender, you flow with that current. You still move, you still breathe. But now, life is carrying you. You're not fighting, you're trusting. But when you resist, when you panic, when you try to swim against the flow, what happens? You wear yourself out. You go nowhere. You sink. That's the picture of a life lived in control. But the life of a chosen one, it's built on surrender. Malala Yousafzai, at just 15, was shot by the Taliban for standing up for girls' education. She could have become consumed by fear or anger, but instead she surrendered, not in defeat but to a higher calling. She let go of personal vengeance and allowed her voice to become a global beacon of hope. That kind of surrender transformed tragedy into a worldwide movement. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. Psalm 37 verse 5. But surrender isn't just about events, it's internal. In this test you'll be asked to let go of more than your plans. You'll be asked to release your identity, your ego, even your dreams, not to discard them, but to place them in higher hands. The version of you that thought it had to do everything alone, that version is dying, and in its place, a truer, freer version is rising. Chosen one, what would happen if you stopped resisting? What would happen if you dropped the need to understand every detail and simply trusted that life knows what it's doing, even when you don't? Albert Einstein, widely considered one of the greatest minds in history, held a surprising belief that the universe wasn't random, but ordered, intelligent. He called it cosmic religious feeling. Even through the complexity of physics, he surrendered to the idea that there is a force beyond logic, guiding everything. For Einstein, science was not separate from surrender, it was confirmation of it. But here's the paradox. When you finally let go, you don't become weaker. You become wiser, lighter, and more aligned. You begin to sense things differently. You walk into rooms not with anxiety, but with calm presence. You stop chasing and start receiving. Opportunities begin to unfold, not because you forced them, but because you finally became available for them. Cast all your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. Surrendering to life doesn't mean you become passive. On the contrary, it means you become co-creative. You stop acting out of fear and start acting out of faith. You make moves, but you're not attached to outcomes. You speak boldly, but you're not afraid of silence. You plant seeds, but you no longer try to control the rain. Chosen one, this is where most people turn back, because surrender feels like death to the ego. It feels like losing, but those who pass this test know the truth. Surrender is not death, it is resurrection. It is rebirth into something more powerful, more fluid, more rooted in divine alignment. Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes of all time, recently spoke about stepping away from tennis not as retirement, but as evolving. She could have fought to stay at the top, but she chose to surrender to a new chapter. Her faith in timing and flow is what now allows her to move from one realm of power to another. That is the grace of surrender. So let me ask again, what are you still trying to control that no longer belongs to you? What if surrender isn't weakness, but the highest form of spiritual strength? Can you trust the river to carry you, even if you don't know where it's going? This is the test that separates the chosen ones from the rest, not because they have fewer doubts or fears, but because they move anyway. They surrender not when they feel like it, but when their spirit knows it's time. Surrender isn't a single act, it's a lifestyle. It's a continual willingness to bow to the divine order, even when you don't understand it. And when you live in that space, everything begins to unfold with grace. Things fall into place. People show up at the right moment. Miracles start to feel normal. Because now you're not just surviving life, you're aligned with it. Test 7. The final test. Awakening to the truth of who you really are. Chosen one, if you have made it this far, then you have already walked a path that few dare to tread. You've faced the storm of identity loss. You've sat alone in silence while the world screamed for your attention. You've surrendered your need for control and held on to faith in complete darkness. You've let go of dreams, timelines, ego, and even the idea of who you thought you were. And still, you are here. That alone makes you extraordinary. But now comes the final test, the most profound, most sacred, and most transformative of them all, the test of awakening. Unlike the others, this test is not a battle of endurance. It's not about how much you can carry or how long you can hold on. It's about what you are finally ready to see. It's about opening your spiritual eyes and realizing that everything, all the pain, the confusion, the letting go, was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal you. The eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling. Ephesians 1:18. Awakening is the moment the veil is lifted, when the noise fades, when clarity rushes in like light into a darkened room. It's the moment when the why behind every struggle finally begins to make sense. Not just emotionally, but spiritually. You no longer ask, why did this happen to me? Instead, you begin to whisper, thank you, now I see. Let me ask you this, chosen one. What if everything you thought was a delay was actually divine preparation? What if your broken heart, your closed doors, your long nights, your silence from heaven, what if all of it was choreography? What if God was never absent, only hidden? The truth is, the chosen ones aren't selected because they're better. They're not chosen because they're more talented or holy or lucky. They are chosen because they chose to awaken. They chose to search deeper, to ask the uncomfortable questions, to look at their pain and say, what is this trying to teach me? Alan Watts, the renowned philosopher and spiritual teacher, captured the essence of this final test when he said, waking up to who you are requires letting go of who you imagine yourself to be. Watts was not just a thinker. He was a bridge between Eastern mysticism and Western thought, weaving together the wisdom of Zen Buddhism, Vedanta, and Christian mysticism to create a roadmap to inner realization. Through lectures, books, and thousands of hours of recorded talks, he urged people to question the illusion of separation, to understand that the ego is not the self, but a mask. One of his most powerful teachings was that trying to control life is like trying to grab water with a clenched fist. The tighter you hold on, the more it slips through. He taught that true awakening comes when you stop grasping and begin allowing, when you shift from seeking to seeing. His message was not about effort, but about awareness, not about becoming something new, but realizing what you've always been. That, chosen one, is the very heart of this awakening you are now being called into. Not a change in identity, but a return to essence, a remembrance of your true nature as a living extension of divine intelligence. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. This final test is not about fixing anything. It's about remembering who you truly are before the world told you who to be, before the fear, before the striving, before the masks. The moment of awakening is the moment you stop chasing a purpose outside yourself and realize you are already living it. You are not separate from life. You are not some bystander tossed around by fate. You are life itself, a divine expression of the eternal Creator, taking form through your unique body, your unique story, your unique energy. Everything you've gone through was preparing you for this revelation. Eckhart Tolle, who once endured a long battle with suicidal depression and existential despair, experienced what he described as a sudden and radical awakening in the middle of the night at the age of 29. At his lowest point, overwhelmed by mental torment, he whispered to himself, "I can't live with myself any longer." And in that moment, something shifted. He realized, if there is a self he could no longer live with, then perhaps there is a deeper self watching all along. That insight, the awareness of the observer, led to the total collapse of his ego and the birth of a profound inner stillness. In the days that followed, he wandered through London in a state of awe and peace. Nothing in the outer world had changed, but everything inside him had. From that space of surrender, of no longer needing to control or understand, came a clarity so powerful that it not only healed him, but sparked a global movement of spiritual awakening. His book, The Power of Now, has become a cornerstone for millions on the path of spiritual transformation. Chosen one, have you ever reached a point where you said, "I can't keep doing this"? Have you ever felt so fractured that the only option left was surrender? Could it be that your own breakthrough is waiting right at the edge of your breakdown? Just like Eckhart, what if your greatest awakening will not come through more effort, but through letting go of effort altogether? You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. But here's what most people don't understand. Awakening isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of a new journey, one that is no longer driven by fear, but guided by purpose. You start to live differently. You begin to speak with intention. You create not from striving, but from flow. You love not out of need, but from overflow. Chosen one, what if I told you your purpose isn't something to find? What if I told you that your breath, your being, your presence is the purpose? What if everything that unfolds from this moment on is just a deeper expression of that awakening? Maya Angelou, poet, prophet, and spiritual mother to millions, once said, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." Maya didn't just speak about awakening, she embodied it. Her life was a series of painful metamorphoses, but each transformation peeled away illusion until only the truth remained, that her existence, her voice, her story was divinely ordained. You've been through that same process. Layer by layer, God has been unwrapping you, not to expose you, but to reveal you, not to humiliate you, but to humble you into wholeness. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. Ephesians 5:8. And now that the veil is lifting, everything is starting to look different, isn't it? You no longer feel the need to control. Why? because now you understand that life was never out of control. It was simply outside your understanding. You no longer feel the need to search endlessly for your purpose. Why? Because now you realize your presence is the purpose. You no longer need constant affirmation from others. Why? Because now you remember that you are already whole. Nelson Mandela, after 27 years of imprisonment, could have emerged angry, broken, and vengeful. But instead, he stepped into the light, not just as a leader, but as a fully awakened man. He understood that the real prison was fear, and that true freedom comes when you see yourself as part of something greater. He once said, "As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same." That's the fruit of awakening. So, beloved, what illusions are you still holding on to? What part of your identity are you still defending that no longer serves your soul? Can you let the old self die so the real you can finally live? Freely, boldly, truthfully. Because here's the deeper truth: you've never been separate from the divine. You've never been unloved. You've never been behind. You've only been asleep to who you are. And now you're waking up. This awakening doesn't mean every day will be easy. It doesn't mean you'll never face struggle again. But it does mean you'll walk differently. You'll see differently, and most importantly, you'll choose differently. Because once you know who you are, you can no longer tolerate living like you don't. Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Ephesians 5:14. You are no longer a servant to fear. You are no longer a puppet of ego. You are no longer the product of your past. You are a vessel of divine light, and this world needs your illumination. And so, one final time, are you ready to awaken? Are you ready to stop surviving and start embodying? Are you ready to stop asking, "Who am I?" and start declaring, "I know who I am"? Are you ready to live like the veil is gone, like the chains are broken, like your soul has finally come home? Because if you are no longer just chosen, you are awakened. And everything changes from here. Beloved, if you are still here, reading these words, breathing with intention, and feeling something deep in your soul begin to shift, then you are not just watching or listening, you are remembering. You are reconnecting with something ancient within you. This isn't the kind of content people casually scroll through and forget. No, this is a divine appointment. And if you have made it this far, if you've walked through each of the 7 tests with courage, even if trembling, then you are already walking in rare air. You are among the few who didn't give up when the path grew dark, who didn't turn back when the weight grew heavy, who didn't choose comfort over calling. You are one of the ones who kept showing up, even when the answers didn't come, even when the world didn't clap. You stayed, you endured, and that means more than you may ever realize. This journey hasn't been about perfection, it's been about persistence. Every test along the way, from identity to isolation, from letting go to surrender, from faith to darkness, and now to awakening, wasn't here to punish you. It was designed to prepare you, to peel away the layers of illusion, to strip off the expectations the world placed on you, to dissolve the masks you thought you needed in order to be accepted, all so that the real you, the divine, unshakable, eternal you, could finally rise to the surface. And now that you're here, now that the veil has lifted, you are standing in a space that very few ever reach. Spiritual clarity. Not the kind you read about in books, but the kind you bleed for, fight for, surrender for. The kind that costs you everything false and rewards you with everything real. So before we go any further, let me say this clearly and with all the sincerity in my heart. Thank you. Thank you for choosing to walk this road. Thank you for opening your heart to these words. Thank you for honoring your own inner knowing enough to keep going when it would have been easier to numb out, to give up, or to turn back. Your presence here means something. It is not just seen, it is sacred. You have walked with me through the deepest parts of the human and spiritual journey, and I do not take that lightly. This wasn't just a message, this was a mirror, and you chose to look into it bravely. For that, you have my deepest respect and love. If this journey has touched your life, if it has moved something inside you, if it has sparked clarity or comfort, strength or surrender, then I invite you to consider supporting this work through the Super Thanks button. These messages take time, heart, and spiritual labor to craft and share. Your donation, no matter the amount, is a direct investment in spreading truth to more souls who need it. But hear me, please, because this matters just as much. Whether you give or not, I am profoundly grateful for you. Your engagement, your energy, your willingness to receive this message is already a blessing. This mission was never about money, it's about awakening. And your very presence is proof that the mission is being fulfilled. Now, before we part, I want to offer more than just words. I want to leave you with a blessing, not the kind that fades with time, but the kind that settles into your bones. May this blessing stay with you in the days ahead, long after you close this page or stop this video. May it become a living rhythm in your spirit. May your path unfold with divine clarity, even when the road ahead disappears into mystery. May your heart remain tender, even in a world that celebrates numbness. May your voice grow stronger, not to shout over others, but to speak truth with love and fire. May your inner peace no longer be dependent on outer circumstances. May your surrender no longer feel like loss, but like alignment. May your purpose no longer feel like a distant dream, but like the breath you carry into every room. May you walk into every space knowing who you are, not arrogantly, but confidently, because heaven backs you. And may you no longer fear the dark, because now you know it is in the dark that the stars are born. Because here is the truth: you were never lost, you were never broken, you were never too late or too far gone. You were simply awakening. And now that the veil has lifted, you are no longer wandering, you are remembering. Remembering that you are not separate from God. You are not separate from life. You are not separate from purpose. You are life expressing itself in human form. You are a divine echo, a walking testimony, a living mirror of what happens when pain is turned into purpose, when confusion is refined into clarity, and when waiting is transformed into wisdom. So now, with all the love and challenge that truth brings, are you ready to live like one of the awakened? Not just talk about purpose, but walk in it. Not just carry light, but become the light. Not just survive your story, but become the author of what comes next. Are you ready to stop apologizing for your sensitivity, your knowing, your calling, and start living like your soul is finally in charge? If the answer in your spirit is yes, even if it's whispered through trembling lips, I invite you to type "I'm ready" in the comments, not for me, not for attention, but as a public declaration to yourself and to heaven. Let the universe see it. Let the algorithm echo it. Let your fingers put in writing what your spirit has already accepted. You are not asleep anymore. You are awake. And if you feel led, share this message, not for vanity, not for likes, but because someone else out there is where you were before the veil lifted. Someone else is on the verge of giving up. Someone else is waiting for confirmation that they're not alone. Be the confirmation, be the message, be the light in the tunnel, not just because you made it out, but because you remember what it was like inside. And until we meet again, whether in another message, another season, or another divine appointment, may you stay soft, stay strong, and stay surrendered. May you live with boldness, create with reverence, and love without walls. And may you remember always, 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 you are not just called, you are not just tested, you are not just refined, you are chosen, you are awakened, and now you are free. With reverence, with fire, And with every blessing heaven can pour into your hands, I see you, I honor you, and I walk with you still.